All right. All right, enough of that happy horse shit. Welcome back to Cover to Cover. This episode, we are talking about Static Age from the Misfits. My co-host, Hialeah Comic Bro, is not with us tonight. He had other obligations, so hopefully he'll be back for the next episode. Tonight, our guest is my best bud, a blast from the past, James Hathaway.
Thanks, Don.
I've known this guy forever.
Forever and a day, right?
Yeah. I just realized the other day, I was like, oh my God, we've known each other 20 years.
20 years. Isn't that crazy?
20 freaking years.
I didn't think I'd make it 20 years past 20 years old. So
yeah, how about it? What the hell?
Man.
But this gentleman is one of the sole influences on some of the crazy shit that I listen to.
I'm sorry, everyone. That's my fault. I got to spread it, you know? It's a disease.
One of those being this album by this band right here that we're talking about tonight. The Misfits. Just, dare I say, criminally underrated? Criminally underrated.
By far influenced globally.
Now, I recently did a rant against the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm not going to do that again. You can go back to that and check it out. I ranted about Thin Lizzy not being in there, and
that's
go check it out.
Yeah, I don't even talk about that.
Interesting case. Iron Maiden finally got nominated. So
I know. I heard that. Yeah.
There's a plus. There's something's going on here. We'll see. I did see they're number 4 in the fan vote, so who knows? Anyway,
what we need is a heavy metal Hall of Fame.
Yeah. The UK, they got that shit down. A lot of these bands have already been in there. But anyway, what's up, No Good Comics? Welcome to the show tonight. Glad you can stop by. Talking about Misfits Static Age. And this album came out February 27th, 1996. Now, here's the intriguing story behind this is actually their first album, their first full-length album. But due to some circumstances, they didn't release it until 2 decades later. The album itself was recorded in between January and February of 78. Okay, and there's a backstory behind that as well. The 30 days. Glenn Danzig and Misfits and Company recorded a single on Blank Records. Unbeknownst to Mercury Records at the time, recorded an album on their own Blank Records imprint. So you can kind of see where this is going. Danzig he owned the trademark for Blank Records. So a settlement was reached, and Danzig secured 30 hours of studio time for his band in exchange for Mercury using Blank Records' name. So that, in essence, is the story behind the recording of this record, which to me, that's just fascinating. He wheeled and dealed, which is kind of what a lot of them had to do back then to get anywhere. James, you
what do you think about the organization of it? I mean, because up until the point when this was released, everything was hodgepodge, as we all know, right?
Right.
So, from what you know, how did the order of these songs get released onto Static Age? What determined that, and what was the actual development of it before it was released right there in 96. I mean, how did it come to be this format? You know what I mean?
Well, from what I have gathered is it was systematically released like in single formats and 7 inches, like Bullet and We Are 138 and Attitude, Hollywood Babylon. So though it didn't get released, it kind of did get released.
I know my experience was, the greatest hits. You know, I mean, not the greatest hits, volume 1 and 2. Volume 1 and 2. I had volume 1 for what? When was that released? 86, I want to say. So, and as we all know, the recordings are completely different and go to your story, completely different.
Right.
I've always found it interesting how they organize this album, and that's why I brought it up, because it does feel like a flow. It really feels like a flow. You know what I mean? You start off with Static Gauge, you go to TD Casualties, but it wasn't recorded like that at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was well orchestrated, I think, for the release of Static Gauge. I really do.
Well, and they even said that the final release of it coincided with the box set being released.
Yeah. The unholy box set everyone tried to get.
Right,
oh my gosh.
The freaking coffin.
Oh, it's so
what
hard
the hell?
to get back in the day. I have one friend who still has it.
I remember seeing that image when I was in, what that come out, 96?
Yeah. With the pin and all sorts.
Yeah, so I was in junior high. I remember seeing that in, I think, the FYE up in State College, and I was like, because I didn't know what it was at the time.
Oh yeah, I mean, you would have. You never would have seen that stuff unless you went into a local punk store at vinyl or something. Before that was volume 1 and 2. And who was this?
Like,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who says I'm going to buy a bunch of singles and stuff just to get that level of completion? Oh no, it's I really dig the album. Now, do you know anything about the album cover, like the album art behind it? I don't know anything about that. I mean, and it's an interesting cover. I mean, you showed it at the beginning there.
That's the one thing that I didn't. Let me get in here and share it. I didn't get a chance. We were butchering this week, so I didn't get a chance to look into the history of the album. I did read the Pitchfork article the other day. That was very informative. I enjoyed that article. Share screen. Bring this up. Oh, that one. All right. So there's the
So Danzig's obviously on the far right.
This one. Right. I don't know who all is, because I know Mr. Jim was the drummer. And
well, let's just validate it. I got it right here.
Only. What the hell was his name? Frank?
Coma, Mr. Jim in Coma. His guitar was F-R-A-N-C-H-E with a tilde.
Yeah.
However you would pronounce that. Coma. Yeah.
Franchi, whatever.
Franchi. It's classy,
Yeah.
Misfits classy.
I don't know if I can story Static Age cover. Oops.
And even after this came out, it was not the first Misfits album I got even in 96. I mean, it was a while until I actually got Static Age, because I just liked the other stuff so much, and the single sound was what I was used to with the volume 1s and 2s, even though it was slightly different. It didn't sound like Static Age as much, so I just kind of, it really wasn't until around 99, 2000 I really looked at it.
I don't think the Wikipedia says anything about the cover.
I had a buddy who used to say they were making fun of the Ramones, trying to mock them. How? I don't know. Like they were covering their face, but they had the same hairstyle. I don't know if there's any validity to that. Sounds a bit chummy to me, but
yeah. I mean, I guess I don't know.
This is the only thing I ever heard.
Yeah. That's my nephew.
Cool.
I lost my train of thought here.
And I mean, the cool thing I've always thought about Static Age is what we were talking about prior to starting the show was the actual bonus tracks. You know, the recordings they included from the original recordings in the studio that were nowhere to be found before that.
Like In the Doorway, which is one of my favorites.
Oh, and by far, yeah.
I love that album. Love that song.
I think isn't Spinal Remains one of those too?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say by far though my favorite's Hybrid Moments, and not just because of the Jackass movie.
It was produced by David Achilles and Tom. I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. But I'm gonna say it's a Polish last name. We'll say that. But two guys that nobody's ever heard of, and I'm sure they have some notoriety within punk genre. They probably have produced other albums, but I just never heard of them. But then again, when you're dealing with a band like the Misfits, who kind of are fringe of they're punk, but they're not like
punk,
they're not like the Dead or the Ramones. I mean, the Ramones were like so clean cut, and their lyrics were not plain. It was stuff that was going on.
Radio friendly.
Right.
They're radio friendly. Yeah.
Whereas, particularly with this,
Misfits.
yeah, especially with this one.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's many songs on here that still shock me to this day.
Yeah. No, I was thinking about that the other day. I was listening to it, and I'm sitting there at the table after my wife got home, and I was listening to it, and she was kind of looking at me. She didn't say anything, but she looked at me, and I'm like, yeah, the lyrics definitely hit different than they did 20 years ago when I first heard this.
They do.
It's weird. Do. I don't know if it's because I'm older, or
I think
because I have kids.
Yeah.
But it
really does, especially like Last Caress, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big one.
That's a big one. It is. It is.
Bullet. That's a big one.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you're talking about a denigrating comment towards one of the former first ladies,
like 10 years after they were assassinated, or 15 years probably.
Yeah.
Assassination. Yeah, it's still pretty. Even now, it's kind of touchy to say something like that. Well, I mean, with this album though, wasn't there there's a greater story to how I think the greater story actually is the animosity between all the band members and Danzig and how this came to be, this album.
Right.
It wasn't a collaborative effort to get Static Age out, to my knowledge. This was Glenn Danzig wanting to make some, money and spread it out. Spread
right.
Misfits out.
Well, and they'd only been together for 9 months. It wasn't even a year.
Yeah, it was incredibly fast. Well, man, not today's standards, but
right. Yeah.
You're famous now. You're not.
But as far as like acquiring a method to get it out there, they couldn't land the deal. Nobody wanted to touch it. From what I've been able to see.
Yeah. I mean, it's understandable. Let's be honest here. You know,
right. Like we just addressed.
Yeah.
It was not radio friendly whatsoever. Now,
even go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say there was a couple that, you know, the TV casualty could have flown. We are 138. There's not a whole lot lyrically to that.
That brings up a good point, though. I was just reading about 138. There are so many stories about this and contradicting stories about We Are 138. What do you think about it? What's the meaning of 138?
I don't remember. I remember you telling me some of the stories, but I don't remember the contents of these stories.
What I remember and what I just read was that 138 was a reference to TH 1138, the Lucas movie.
Okay.
And they all, throughout the years before Static Age was released, everyone validated that. Everyone from Only and Danzig and all that. But then there was an interview in 2000 where Danzig said, that's all bullshit. It's about fighting people. No one knows what they're talking about. So in classic Danzig form, we have no idea.
No idea. Yeah.
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 That's yeah. He's good at that shit.
Yeah, I mean, look at his career after the Misfits. I mean, it's all like, you know, like
yeah,
and stuff, Samhain, all that stuff. You know, it's all like fringy stuff. Yeah, there's been a lot of that with this about meanings and stuff. And Danzig even said in that same interview where he said that the 130 THX 1138 was BS, that they just used 138 as a way to make people feel like they were part of the theme club. So when anyone would say, what's 138 mean? Because they would have badges, I guess, when they were playing that said we are 138 or 138, like a badge that says 138. And when anyone would ask, what does that mean? They say, you don't know what it means? I'm Glenn Danzig. You don't know what 138 means? Oh, man, you better ask somebody. No one knew what the hell it meant. You know what I mean?
It's almost like a gimmick, like an ad gimmick. You know, it's
yes, it is.
Because I mentioned this to you, and I've mentioned to other people that there's several times I'm at work and I'm rolling through the racks and I'm just going, we are 138.
I love the one with oh my gosh, how did his name slip my mind? Black Flag. Henry Rollins.
Oh, Henry Rollins.
I love the Henry Rollins version where he gets up on the stage. You ever hear that?
No, I'm going to have to look at it now.
It's good. He's just like, Henry Rollins, I make Danzig look stable. Good stuff. This is why I don't go on the internet.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely. Just lyrically, this
chanting, you know.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a mind fuck, really, if you think about it, because you're getting into these songs, and he's got that great Elvis croon, that catchy voice, and the beat is right there, and like you said earlier, the flow of the song, it just sounds like it fits together perfectly.
Nobody could touch his lyric. Guy, his music is singing, man. Think about Punk.
Right.
It's all, and he's singing like Elvis and you know, a crooner, like you said.
And it's like a
Jim Morris.
I call it a double-edged sword. It's stuff you're not supposed to like, but you do anyway, even though those lyrics are intense.
You know, I remember growing up, and my dad and other people growing up would hear those lyrics, and I remember thinking, oh, I'm so edgy, you know, it's like listening to Slayer or something like that. Like, oh, these are so meaningful. They're not meaningful, but especially when it's offensive. But I remember growing up, and my dad particularly would say, like, oh no, he would to pick it apart. He would say, oh yeah, you know, I've got something to say, blah 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 blah. This would mean that. Like, I'm destroying your future and your past. Like, they even saw that even at that time when I was just trying to be offensive.
Right.
So, I mean, there could be a greater meaning to these songs now.
Yeah. I never even thought about that. Wow.
Probably no one has.
Dan was so intense.
Who?
Your dad.
Oh, he's so intense, man. So brooding. Oh, man. But, I mean, there's a lot of songs on here that got covered later, like Attitude. Didn't GNR do that?
I believe so, yeah.
And, like, countless punk bands.
Metallica.
Oh, my God, yeah. Yeah. I really, really have been a fan of Teenagers from Mars. You know, Children in Heat. It doesn't say here, Children in Heat. I guess that other part's later to come after this album. I always thought they were together. Teenagers from Mars and Children in Heat, but I guess that's just the live recordings I'm used to hearing.
Huh.
But yeah, it's listed separately on here. Teenagers from Mars. And like even like Theme for a Jackal, that's not a punk song. You know, it's almost like a jivey song. You know, Theme for a Jackal. Sorry.
Almost like what he would later get into with the solo stuff.
Yeah.
Where is that?
I didn't talk to anyone who got to see the reunion, the recent one. I think that would have been amazing.
Yeah, I caught some of the clips and stuff from it, and it looked like they were all having a good time. But you know how that is, put on a front. But I don't know. Right. Well, you think about it. They're Jerry and Glenn particularly are 60 years old. Well, Glenn's a year younger than my mom, so
yeah. I'll tell you what, Jerry is a monster of a human being. He's like 6'20". That's what it feels like. Because he's got these boots on too, and he walks. You know, at least I met him a couple times at the Chameleon Club when they played, and he's just like, he came up to you and he goes like, God bless you, God bless you.
Yeah,
glad you have a great time. He's just such a nice person, you know.
Yeah,
you almost feel like, yeah, he knows I'm in the Fiend Club, you know. He knows I'm in the Fiend Club. Oh man.
God damn it! I need to start taking notes. I can't remember. There was a couple things I was going to bring up.
You know what? When they play these older songs as the new Misfits, like with Des Cadena from Black Flag.
Oh yeah.
They sound good, but they all sound the same without Danzig, buddy. They all sound, you know what I mean? They're all just, you're like, what song are they playing now? It's some old Misfits song here.
Really?
The Misfits are so much more like more songy, you know what I mean? Their actual structure and their, you know.
Right. We brought that up in a couple of the other episodes where we were talking about singer changes, well, particularly AC/DC, like how bands, when they change a singer, they change the music to fit around the vocals.
Absolutely.
Like Black Sabbath did with Dio.
Oh my gosh, that's a great example.
Like Michael Graves, you can hear that distinctive tone change, building it around Michael. I mean, for Christ's sakes, he was 19 years old.
Yeah.
What a gig!
And after he left,
right?
You know? But yeah, you're right. That's when it kind of became like this more of a strong structure, the song structure, kind of more like, because I feel like the songs in Static Age are more structured songs compared to a lot of Misfits songs like Green Hell or Earth 80. Those aren't traditional structured songs in my opinion. They're more like metal-y, you know.
Yeah.
But the new Misfits and this older stuff off Static Age really fits that kind of like, you know, measure, verse, measure, chorus, you know, that kind of, any kind of structure like that. Yeah, it's quite an interesting side note, especially in punk.
That's one of the things I was going to bring up. We're talking about the songs and how it relates to Michael Graves and how, well, I said about him being I think that was in the Pitchfork article. Here it is. Let's see here. Talks about post Misfits when Glenn went on into the bluesier type stuff like with Salmon and Danzig, and Jerry and forming Christ the Conqueror.
Amazing album.
And then building the new Misfits out of that, with Michael Graves. And somebody they brought up the long overdue release of Static Age shed a painful light on the absurdity of having a kid not yet of drinking age sing Danzig's lyrics about Patty Hearst, Vincent Price, and Kenny Anger.
Yeah. That'd be an interesting case study, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right. Now it's even worse. You got to be 21 to buy booze or cigarettes. Come on.
Right.
Jeez. You brought up Christ the Conqueror. And it's interesting because it's almost like that was when Jerry and his brother, Wolfgang, became, well, Christian. You know what I mean? They focused less on the evil aspects and more on the light. And I remember hearing a story about Christ the Conqueror where, like, I guess like Metallica came to one of their shows because they knew the Misfits, and they were playing the song "Wherever I May Roam," which showed up on the Metallica's next album, the Black Album. So it kind of sounds the same too. It's like I don't know, but it's like, man, Jerry, you just keep getting screwed over, don't you?
Javi.
Have you listened to Christ the Conqueror, the album?
No, I haven't.
It's good. It's good. Yeah.
Let's check it.
Let me see. Static Age here.
They went on. In the article talking about the 17 songs that they eventually came out of those recordings, over 30 hours. You think about that 30 hours of recording, it doesn't sound like that much, but you can get a lot of done in that amount of time. And 17 songs that they did, apparently.
I wonder why Spinal Remains and In the Doorway weren't heard until this came back out. Everything else I heard of many times besides
right.
This. And they're wonderful songs.
They're at least two of them are two of the best songs on it.
Yeah.
Now I don't know if it had to do with maybe the way those other songs were released on the EPs and so forth. Well,
I'm sure it had to, but they're good songs.
They just didn't. Right. I don't know if they would have had plans to do so before the breakup in 83. Or was it 84? 83.
I don't know. Last show ever was that 84 Halloween? It could be 83 Halloween. I'd have to look that up.
But then it says here that Danzig had overdubbed the guitar and the bass on 9 of the unreleased tracks after they broke up.
And that's
so there's a lot
2 stuff we got.
Right.
A lot of that.
So there's probably a lot. I'm wondering if maybe it didn't have to do with a lot of what he was doing.
He didn't want to pick up that stuff, I guess.
Right.
Got you.
I don't know. I mean, nobody knows with Danzig. I mean, he is his own guy. I mean, you can see that with Danzig 4.
5, 6, and 7, and 8.
Yeah.
He just came out with a new one. Danzig Sings Elvis, I believe. I saw it on vinyl at the vinyl shop.
Yeah, I did see that. Somebody else was talking about that, and I can't remember where. I was watching something, and they were talking about, and they were like, "Oh my God, why?"
I didn't pick it up. There was 2 albums between that and the repressing, re-release of the original Sam Hain Downward. It's gonna bother me now. Brain's not working right now. One that has a left-hand path. So I picked that one.
Yeah,
I've never had it. But I don't know. I'll probably pick it up at some point. Yeah. I really feel like this album, especially, and, you know, every Misfits album, but this one especially, you gotta listen to this on vinyl. I had it on CD,
yeah,
and I don't even know what a CD is at this point. I don't even listen to the vinyl.
Well, my CDs are in a box in three separate boxes back here. I just don't have room.
They're just scattered. Rebuy them someday.
They mentioned the fact that this album, had it been released, could have been the Misfits' London Calling or Nevermind the Bollocks, which, as we know, put their respective bands basically on the map.
Yeah.
But at the same time, with the lyrics, as we previously discussed, it could have still kept them on Fringe, because it was such an envelope pusher. Onley said in 2015 that they talked to Sire Records, who were doing the Ramones and Richard Hell, and they didn't want it. On paper, it's easy to see why the Misfits were a tough sell. This basically reiterates what we had already talked about.
It's interesting, though. This is just a thought I had in the back of my mind for years now, is why didn't they just clean it up? Was that their selling point? I guess that's their selling point. Like Black Flag, but Black Flag was just not as crazy, I guess.
Right. Maybe yeah.
I guess that's just their thing, like Cannibal Corpse. They're just gross. You know what I mean? All right.
Speaking of that, it was probably easier to release it.
Yeah, you're right.
Bands like Cannibal Corpse had already hit the floor with some of those. I mean,
like it got way grosser. So if they were like 10 years later, they would have been, superstars.
Right.
They'd have been on MTV and everything. Yeah. Like Some Kind of Hate, TV Casualty, Static Age, Return of the Fly. I mean, there's a lot of songs in here that aren't like intrinsically offensive, you know? You can read into some of the things like violence and stuff, but there's some songs that just, if they would have cut out, it would have been radio friendly. But like we said, maybe that's their gimmick.
Yeah. Along with the horror theme stuff. Which is, I mean, there's a lot of people that listen to them just because of the horror theme stuff.
Well, they created the genre too out of this. If you think about it, horror punk didn't exist before the Misfits.
Right.
It's a thing now. I mean, there's many bands like that. Can't name any, but they're
yeah.
I'd say they're not around anymore.
The there's a lot of bands that
Tiger Army.
yeah, and bands that named themselves after lyrics and Misfits songs, and like
AFI,
Texas is the reason.
They wouldn't exist without the Misfits. You know
Right.
what I mean? They were.
Yeah.
Weren't they a cover band for the Misfits?
Texas is
They
the
started
reason.
off covering all Misfits songs.
I think so.
Yes.
Well,
I'd say I've always also found the placement of She interesting. That it's so deep in the Static Age track listing. I always thought it'd be like track 2 or 3, especially with the popularity of that song when this was released.
Right.
And a lot of the first Misfits song I heard was She. I mean, I know a lot of people like that.
This the Pitchfork article brought that up about She, and how it related to, I believe, Patty Hearst.
Yeah.
And the bank robbery, and in the doorway, with a machine gun. It's like, holy shit.
Yeah, no, there was a lot of. And when did that happen? When was the Patty Hearst thing again? Release of this, wasn't it? Like within years, I'd imagine.
Patty Hearst. Well, she's the same age as Danzig, so it had to have been right around the same time.
Yeah.
74 was the kidnapping.
Okay.
And then 19 months later, she was found and arrested after being abducted. By which time she was a fugitive wanted for serious crimes committed with members of the group, the Symbionese Liberation Army.
Ah, that's what it was. Yeah.
Whatever the hell that is.
I did. The People's Front.
People's Front.
Yeah. What?
There it is. Yeah, there's the lyric. She walked out with empty arms, machine gun in her hand. She is good and she is bad. No one understands.
I believe.
Got a rich daddy.
I believe one of their band stickers was the picture of her in the beret with the machine gun, standing in a doorway.
Oh yeah.
And that it's not. I thought it was going to be in the track listing here, and but it's not. I thought I saw it in here.
If I can bring it up.
Okay, yeah. So this has statements by the. Are these the two producers you were talking about? The ones Tom and Dave.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. It has the statements by them about Legacy of Brutality being a collection that was released to kind of not. I'm paraphrasing this, of course, but to not be Static Age, but to get some of the tracks out. The crowning jewel unveiling of the third song, Not to Make It to the Mixing Board, is In the Doorway. So yeah, maybe it looks like In the Doorway and Spinal Remains weren't mixed down enough, or were in some sort of hiatus state. Maybe that's why they didn't make it to a recording before that, or a single.
Right. Almost like how some scenes get left on the editing floor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Movies and
this. Like, why did they take this out of Star Wars,
Yeah.
Huh.
There it is.
Now, this is saying that the She and Spinal Remains, along with In the Doorway, did not make it to the mixing board. So I wonder, I guess that's because how he got She was Danzig re-recording those guitars. So he redid that for She, but not for Spinal Remains or Legacy of Brutality. There you go.
I wish I could make that bigger, but I don't think I can.
It's that picture, but in a doorway. You know?
Yeah.
She Wolfenstein 2 there. I wonder how that came out. Weird. Not a bad game.
Speaking of blast.
Switch.
Speaking of blast from the past.
How about it? That's the new one though. That's the new Colossus. Not bad. I'm playing that on the Switch.
Nice.
Is that their symbol or something for the Liberation Front or whatever it's called?
Yes, I believe it is.
Cool.
Hell, where'd that go? Yep, that's their symbol. Symbionese Liberation Army. What the heck is that?
The subject for 2 Misfits songs. That's what it is.
Yes. Be like current events.
Yeah.
We won't get into that.
I know this is campy, okay? And I know we'd expect it on a Misfits album, but I do enjoy how it has like the little like comic book stuff, you know, like you want to see like X-ray glasses here and like, you know, because you know that's what Misfits are about, right?
Right. And it makes sense because you know Danzig was an avid comic book collector.
It is.
Well, still is.
The graphic novels or stuff, the graphic comic books.
Yeah. I don't know where it's at. It's in one of these boxes, but he did one something Muerta. I read it. It was all right. It was it's.
I imagine werewolves are involved.
It's werewolves or vampires. I can't remember.
Yeah, no, one of the two.
Yeah, it's yeah. It's all centered around Dia de los Muertos and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's
Day of the Dead or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I took Spanish 1. I know.
But I think we covered everything that I wanted to cover.
Well, you know, as far as being as far as being an album, there's a lot more behind this besides just the album. You know what I mean?
Right.
It speaks more to their history, and I think that's way more of a branching subject. You know?
Yeah. There's
like 8 hours of conversation.
Yeah.
But to keep it to this album, I mean, it is a very interesting footnote of how it was produced and how it finally came to see the light. Now, you said this album, one last thing, you said this album was released in coincided with the box set, right?
Yes, that's let me look at where I saw that. Yes, with the release of the Misfits box set in '96, the complete original Static Age album saw light for the first time.
Yep. Yeah. So
now, in this, it says about the 3 compilation albums, as well as a disc with all 14 Static Age tracks that had been mixed in '78. So,
what 3 compilation albums? There's 1, 2, and what else? Legacy of Brutality.
Yeah. Up here it says. It says the remaining 3 tracks were mixed by Alan Duchesne, and that Tom that originally did the production in February of '97. So
it's the same people.
Right.
All right.
And so they basically did the mixing so that they could release it all in its
Finished up the original stuff.
right. There it says it was finally released in July of '97 as
That's what it says
as
here.
its entirety.
Yeah, I think that's about everything for Static Age.
I mean, you think about it. That's when it takes, and it's not like Dirty Deeds where they just held it for a couple of years until after Back in Black. You know, this was 2 freaking decades.
It was lost. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was forgotten.
Right.
And it was only because of the resurgence of the Misfits that they even
right. Yeah, because if that would have happened, we probably still wouldn't have it.
But the original, the new reformed Misfits album, first one, came out in 97 or 99. So no, it was after all this started. So yeah, I guess the resurgence also kicked them off too.
Yeah, Famous Monsters.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
So, did we give our favorite songs on the album?
No. What's your favorite song? I think
Oh crap! Wait a minute. All right, there we go. This is one of those ones it's hard to narrow down because I previously said I jam out the We Are 138 a lot. But Hollywood Babylon, In the Doorway, probably Some Kind of Hate.
That's a good song.
I would say those are my top 3, other than We Are 138.
I'd say my top is Hybrid Moments of 138.
Yeah.
I really like Cough Cool, and that's not on here, but it's the same. It was recorded with She. It's not Static Age, but it's not on anything else.
Right.
It's on the box set and on the single. I really like Cough Cool though. I don't know if you ever saw one. You probably heard the song.
Yeah.
It's all piano with Danzig too. It's when I guess before they even had someone playing the guitars, he was doing it on his little keyboard or something. I don't think there's any guitars in that whole song.
That's wild.
So I'm going to include it, even though it's not on the album. and Justice for All Metallica While We're Being Crazy. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But any song you want on the albums. Oh, that's hilarious.
All right.
Cool.
Well, I think that wraps up this episode of Cover to Cover. The Misfits, Static Age, just a seminal album.
Really?
Seminal.
Yeah. Never really. Is that the right word?
No.
We're going to go with it, though. Okay?
Yeah, we'll go with it.
All right.
But if you're a fan, if you're a fan of punk and you've not heard this album, there's something wrong.
What'd you say? Cut out there. I'm sorry.
if you're a punk fan and you've not heard this album, there's something wrong.
You're not a punk fan.
Yeah, you're not a punk fan.
You know what I mean?
This post 96. You should have heard it.
Green Day's my favorite punk band.
Yeah.
I'm gonna end this on one comment. This is punk related, but not Misfits related. I was in the record store and I picked up the first album from the Adolescents. I don't know if you ever listened to them.
No.
That's a punk band right there. Yeah, they're good. Same time frame as the Misfits, but it's the same kind of like just it's not horror punk, but it's good old Black Flag Misfits kind of punk, from the early '80s.
Nice
Good stuff.
There's so many that don't get enough.
30 years after it came out, I just found it.
Right, right. But anyway, I think next week I'm going to get with Javi and talk to him about, because it was one of the albums that he picked. And James, you might be interested in this one as well. But we would have to adjust the schedule based on his work schedule. It might have to be pushed back to like 9 or whatever. But he picked Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath.
Oh my! Any Sabbath album? Are you kidding me? Every single Sabbath album ever, even Tire. Even Tire and Cross Purposes.
Yeah. I didn't think Cross Purposes was that bad.
Compared to like Heaven and Hell, compared to like Paranoid, yeah, no, that's pretty terrible, man.
Yeah, it is terrible. It is terrible.
I like Tire. I've been getting into Tire, so yes, I am interested.
Okay,
I am absolutely.
All right. I will talk to Javi and see what his opinion is, what he wants to do. I told him I wouldn't do it, and since he picked it, I wouldn't do it without him. So, interesting fact: Javi is quite a bit younger than us.
Yeah, good.
But at the same time, Hialeah is 10 years older than us.
Metal doesn't see a number, man.
So, I hope everybody will join us for the next episode.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely.
Good talk.
And get out there and listen to some music. Peace.